Hey guys, what's going on? So the Monster Super League developers just released specific notes about the Astromons which are getting changed in the next update that's coming soon, and I wanted to go over them with you today, share my thoughts on them, and stuff like that. So we're gonna start off with the natural 3-star monsters that you can capture in the story mode. I think this is going to be interesting for everyone because everyone has access to these, everyone can farm them, with the exception of Crowhook and Jelly. I believe those are summon only, but the rest you can find in the story mode. So first of all, we have Fire Miho. She will be buffed actually. Her 5-star skill still restores her own HP, but it doesn't need to be a critical hit anymore. It can just be a normal attack. Kokomaru doesn't really seem like a nerf or a buff. Instead of critical hits lowering the enemy's attack for 2 turns, now you have a 60% chance all the time, critical hit or not, to lower it for 1 turn. So people who built their Kokomarus with a crit build, this is actually kind of a nerf, because now there's only a 60% flat chance. Also only being active for 1 turn instead of 2. Water Candling had a lot of things changed to it. Its type is changed to Attacker now. Its 3-star skill simply changed to a boost of 20% critical rate instead of more damage when attacking fire Astromons. And again for its active skill, so basically the Water Candling doesn't have any skills really, just will always have 20% more crit rate, which some can see as a pretty good thing. Siegler I am really excited about because I'm currently farming Siegler, as you can see here, and Siegler just gets a straight buff to her 3-star skill. 20% more chance to inflict the enemy with 2 sap damages. It was 40% last time. No change in turn count, just 20% more chance, so that's really cool. Mona gets a little bit of a nerf, but also kind of not, because instead of critical hits needing to activate the SP recovery, it's now just normal attacks, but it is 5% less. Her 5-star skill is just a straight nerf, 10% less chance to reduce defense for 2 turns. Wood, Water, and Fire Crowhook's 5-star skills got changed. Personally, I prefer the changed Wood Crowhook's 5-star ability, reducing defense for 2 turns instead of reducing SP by 10%. Water Crowhook's 5-star skill just got a buff, 60% chance to stun for 1 turn. I think that's really good. And Fire Crowhook's also just got buffed, 80% instead of 60%, also amazing. Actually, Fire Crowhook is a pretty damn good Astromon now. 80% chance to inflict the enemy with 2 sap damages for 2 turns. That is insanely good. That's almost Fire Persephone level, so don't release your Crowhooks automatically anymore. You may actually want to raise them. Wood, Water, and Fire Beths all have their 5-star skills changed as well. They'll all just now do double damage to their strong element, and since Beth is a single target active skill, she'll do tons of damage to a boss as long as she has the elemental advantage versus a boss. And I think Beth here also gets a buff because, like I said, her active skill is single target, so reducing the enemy's defense or taunting just 1 doesn't really do all that much, especially when it's not a 100% chance, it's just 80% chance. But doing double damage on top of the elemental advantage plus it being a single target, definitely a boss killer there. Water and Fire Jellies also got changes. Water Jelly is now a tank, and its 5-star skill is kind of healing now, 100% chance to restore allies' HP by 5%. 5% may not seem like that much, but it could be a pretty good support healer, like in addition to another one, because it also deals damage with its active skill. And Fire Jelly's 3-star skill actually got a huge buff, HP Siphon increased by 100%, so it's not changed, it's just straight buffed. Okay, I just found the full list with the rest of the 3 and 2-star monsters, so I'm going to go over those as well. Fire Mandragora gets a bit of a buff on her 3-star skill, giving a 60% chance to put the enemy asleep for 1 turn instead of 40% chance for 2 turns. I say it's a buff because as soon as they get hit once, they'll wake up anyway, so 2 turns isn't really that effective. Because if one of your guys does an active skill and hits everyone, it's going to wake up regardless. In my opinion, it's a bit of a nerf on the 5-star skill because personally I would rather have reduce attack damage rather than reduce SP recovery. Light Mandragora changed to a defender, and its 3-star skill got a simple buff, 20% more chance to taunt. Dark Mandragora changed to attacker. Both of its skills will just get changed to do more crit damage, so if you're going to grab a Dark Mandragora, make sure to give it some crit rate runes, and you should be doing some decent damage there. Light Cosmo may become a viable healer after this update. as long as you give him some crit rate runes, because both his 3-star and 5-star skill will heal the allies depending on how much damage is dealt with critical hits. Must be a critical hit though. And his leader skill will now give crit rate instead of blue soul recovery. Same with Dark Cosmo. Light Colte's 3-star skill now simply restores SP by 20%, and his 5-star skill grants an 80% chance to shock the enemy for a turn instead of needing a critical hit for a 100% chance. So personally, I think that's a buff, unless you're really going for more than 80% crit chance on a Astromon, but again, I don't think many people are doing that, unless it's absolutely needed for their skill set. Dark Colte's 3-star skill also restores SP by 20% now, and his 5-star skill is similar to Beth's. It is a single target, and it will deal double damage to light Astromons on top of the elemental advantage. So again, could be a very good boss killer, but quite risky, because if it's a light boss, he'll also be doing more damage to a Dark Colte. Fire Lat gets a straight buff to his 3-star skill, making it 2 turns instead of 1 at a 40% chance to stun. Wood, Water, and Fire Monkikis all get changes. Wood's 5-star skill is a 100% chance to stun for a turn, very good, even though he is a single target. Water's 3-star skill also gets a straight buff, 80% chance instead of 60% chance to reduce defense for 2 turns. Fire's 5-star skill, I have no idea, there are some numbers missing here, I'm scared. Critical hits 2 turn grants a % chance to put all enemies, so I can't really tell there what the change is. Water and Fire Mini-Cat got changes. Water Mini-Cat gives a shield for 2 turns instead of 1 turn on its 5-star skill, so a straight buff there. Also, Fire Mini-Cat got a straight buff on its 3-star skill, giving 20% more chance to inflict the enemy with 2 sap damages for a turn. Water and Fire Birdie got buffs to their 3-star skills, doubling the chance to stun for a turn, which is incredible for a 3-star skill. 80% chance to stun. That's almost Light Valkyrie and Fire Arthur chance stun on the normal skills, so Birdie is getting crazy good in this update. Tons of changes to C-Star in every element except Light. Wood C-Star can no longer sap, but only had a 30% chance anyway, and now will have a 60% chance to reduce skill gauges by 10%, and her 5-star skill, in my opinion, gets a buff, 20% more chance but 1 less turn. And also her leader skill is changed to just give critical hit rate instead of damage in dungeons. Water C-Star gets a buff to her normal attack, and also her leader skill is changed like Wood C-Star's is. Fire C-Star will become an attacker instead of balanced. Her 5-star skill gets a huge buff, 80% chance to stun for a turn, and C-Star has area of effect, which means 80% chance to stun everyone. That is insane. Leader skill changed like all the others, and also her active skill gets a damage buff. Dark C-Star's active skill just gets a buff, and also the leader skill changed like the others. And now we're on to the natural 2-star monsters. Wood Mushi now restores half of his SP with a critical hit, and 5-star skill increases critical damage by 50%, so definitely going for a crit build on him. Water Mushi's 3-star skill gets a buff, 40% chance to taunt instead of 20%. Both are kind of bad to be honest, but it's still a buff. And Fire Mushi's 5-star skill grants a 100% chance to taunt for a turn instead of 60, so another straight buff. Water Molar gets buffs to his 3 and 5-star skill as well, just increasing the chance to stun and taunt by 20% on each skill. Wood, Water, and Fire Brawn all get slight buffs to their 3-star skills as well, just increasing the damages by 10%. And also it's changed from dealing extra damage to the same element to the element where you have the advantage, like Beth. Wood, Water, and Fire Squirrus also get changes. Wood's 3-star skill is a buff, 20% more chance to reduce defense for 2 turns. They all get a buff, 20% more chance to do what their skills did originally. Wood Wumo gets a buff to his 5-star skill, 40% chance to petrify instead of 20%. Wood, Water, and Fire Cottony also get changes. With Wood, you get double the chance to taunt. With Water's 5-star skill, you get a defense buff for 3 turns instead of 2. And with Fire's 3-star skill, you get 20% more chance to inflict the enemy with sap damage, and also its 5-star skill is buffed to increase attack power for 3 turns instead of 2. And finally we have Wood Rowan, which just gets a 20% buff to his 3-star skill, which puts enemies to sleep for a turn. So we're going to move on to the natural 4 stars. So starting with Fire Leo, he got a ton of change. He will be an attacker after the update, he's a tank right now, and both of his skills will just be changed to critical damage plus 50%. 20%. So they're definitely going for Leo to be a huge damage dealer. You just want to try and get a Leo with some square slots so you can get his critical rate up. Also, he'll just be getting straight buffs to both of his skills. Regal Rampage and Regal Blade will have respective power buffs, 13 and 10%. Dark Leo's 3-star skill will have a buff in my opinion, because instead of you needing a critical hit to lower the enemy's attack, now it's an 80% chance critical or not. And you won't see many Astromons running around with 80% critical chance even if they have a gem. So for Dark Leos, this kind of removes the necessity to give 1 or 2 crit gems or the crit set to him. And also Dark Leo's Regal Rampage will be increased by 21%. Wood Banshee will have Proclamation of Doom buffed, I believe this is her active skill. And Water Banshee's 5-star skill is changed. I would actually say it's a buff because now you have 2 60% chances to inflict sap, even though it's only for 1 turn. I think it's better. Water Victoria also has a lot of changes on her. Firstly being that she'll be an attacker now. Her 3-star skill is now a defense reduction, 60% chance instead of sap, which is kind of weird, like 2 completely different debuffs. But then again, 30% chance is very low, and then it's only 1 type of sap anyway, so I think almost anything is going to be better than that. And her 5-star skill is like her 3-star skill, defense down but AoE for everyone. And also her Victorious Strike will be increased by 20%. Every single Wild Fang is going to be changed. Wood Wild Fang gets a buff to her 3-star skill, granting 100% chance to petrify on a critical hit instead of 80, but her 5-star skill gets a much needed nerf in my opinion, sleeping for 2 turns at a 100% chance. That's pretty insane. Even though they do wake up when they get hit, you can leave the ones that did go to sleep alone and focus on the ones that are still awake and then kill them on the next, but that's just for 1 turn now, so I think that's fine. Water Wild Fang's 3-star skill can be seen as a nerf or a buff. If you weren't going for a critical set on your Water Wild Fang, it's now a buff because now you have a straight 60% chance, but if you were going for criticals, it's kind of a nerf because now it's 60% at max. Fire Wild Fang got a huge buff on her 3 and 5-star skill because she'll be getting back more than twice the HP she was getting before on both of those attacks. It says more than 100%. Light Wild Fang's 3-star skill got a buff in my opinion. I was never really a fan of Silence and it needs to be a critical, and now you get an 80% chance to reduce defense for 2 turns, which versus tanky enemies is very effective. And Dark Wild Fang just got a damage boost to both of her skills. Light Yuki got a buff to Light Storm by 23%. Dark Yuki is going to be changed into a tank, and her 5-star skill has double the chance to activate but half the turns. Wood Jean is being changed into an attacker, and her 5-star skill simply increases her critical hit rate by 20% instead of having a 40% chance to put enemies to sleep. Also, her Justice's damage is increased by 22%. Water Jean's 3-star skill gets a buff. Critical hits now have a 100% chance to put all enemies to sleep for 2 turns instead of 1 turn, so a big buff there. Light and Dark Cupid both get buffs to their respective skills, and that's all the info they put out on natural 4 stars. Now we're going to be checking out the legendary Astromons you can capture from story mode, Boltwing and Anu, and then we're going to move on to natural 5 stars. So Wood, Water, and Fire Boltwing all got changes. Wood Boltwing is now going to be an attacker. Both of his skills will be hugely buffed. HP Siphon increased by more than 100%, and also the Tornado Storm damage will be increased by 21%, so a huge buff to Boltwing. I very much regret putting my Wood Boltwing into my Water Boltwing early on in the game before I knew what I was doing. Maybe I'll find another one day. Let's see what happened to Water Boltwing. Instead of reducing the enemy's attack, he will now petrify them for 1 turn, which I guess is maybe a little bit better. Still 60% chance. And his 5-star skill just gets a buff, 60% chance to petrify all instead of 40%. So I think that's actually not bad. Petrify though is like one of my least favorite CCs, because even though they can't attack, they have increased defense, so there's not really much point of trying to kill them. You'd be better off trying to kill the ones that didn't get petrified and just leaving them alone, but they can't attack, so that's something. Fire Boltwing. I honestly think his 3-star skill got a buff. Instead of reducing the enemy's blue soul recovery, he will now drop their defense, so defense down is a very good debuff there. Also, Fire Boltwing's active skill will have a 23% buff. Vulcanstorm, and all Anus except Dark will also have changes. Wood Anu just has his Wings of Judgment damage increased by 21%. Water Anu is being changed into an attacker, and instead of increasing damage dealt on his 3-star skill, he now has a 60% chance to reduce enemies' defense for 2 turns. I'm noticing a trend here. A lot of skills are getting changed to reduce defense, as well as in this patch, attack will mean more, and a lot of Astromon's skills are getting attack buffs as well. So it seems like this is definitely leaning to be a faster paced, more depth, more power sort of thing going on here, if you know what I'm talking about. A lot are also getting changed into attackers from either tanks or being balanced, so definitely more offense going on here, and I think that's good because I'm noticing a lot of the Astromons are very tanky, very defensive, and then right under that, instead of reducing enemies' attack, increasing damage by 40%, so that's going along with the trend as well. Also, his Wings of Judgment will also be increased by 20%. Fire Anu, though, is being changed into a tank. His 3-star skill is going to be a stun skill now, 60% chance instead of critical hit rate boost. And Light Anu seems to have an enormous buff on his 3-star skill, unless there's some kind of typo here. Before, it would need to be a critical hit, and now it's 100% chance without a critical hit for the same effect. So huge buff there in my opinion, and a bit of a change on his 5-star skill. More chance for the skill gauges to be reduced, but it's only for 2 turns instead of 3 turns. So now we're finally moving on to the natural 5 stars. Every Valkyrie except Light Valkyrie, which happens to be the only Valkyrie I actually have, will be changed. Fire Valkyrie's 3-star skill will be increased more than 100%. Her 3-star skill is SP Siphon, which means the blue, the active skill bar, and she'll get that restored depending on how much damage she does with her normal attack, so that'll be doubled. Wood Valkyrie is going from a tank to balanced, and also Ethereal Strike, which is her normal skill, is increased by 12%. Water Valkyrie's active skill is just 21% stronger, and Dark Valkyrie changes to what it actually should have been in the first place. 100% chance to stun the enemy on normal attack like the Light Valkyrie, and also her active skill is increased by 21% as well. So they seem to all get buffs. Where's my Light Valkyrie buff? Wood Arthur is being changed from balanced to attacker. His 3-star skill HP Siphon is doubled in effectiveness. He gets a buff to his 5-star skill, increasing the chance by 20% more to stun all enemies for a turn, and his leader skill is changed as well. Not sure if it's a good thing or a bad thing, because now you can only use his leader skill in dungeons, and it's HP instead of attack power, but in my opinion, way better for Golem Dungeon, having more HP instead of attack. Water Arthur is the only Arthur I have, and it looks like he's actually basically getting a nerf here. Apparently his 3-star skill now just recovers 30% SP instead of in proportion to the amount of damage he's doing, because right now I can get more than 30% if I'm attacking a fire dude because I went full attack on him. So everyone else is getting double the effect of HP and SP Siphon, and Arthur, the only Arthur I have, is basically just getting nerfed. That figures. I was really excited when I was reading the Reddit post because it said Arthur's SP Siphon is going to be like everyone else's SP Siphon, it's just going to be doubled in effectiveness, but no, now it's just 30%. I hope it's not actually 30%, really hope it's not actually 30%. Hopefully they'll change that, I don't know, that would suck. Water Arthur is already like the worst Arthur there is, and I thought, okay, that might make him good, but okay, apparently not. He's just getting worse. I used 3 gleams on this bastard. His leader's skill, like Wood Arthur's, is getting changed for dungeons and HP, and he will have a small power boost to Victory Blade, but that doesn't really matter anymore since this is locked at 30% SP recovery. Not much changes with Fire Arthur, same difference in leader skill, and his active skill gets a bit of a buff. Light Arthur leader skill, same as everyone else, and both of his skills get an attack buff. Water Persephone's going from a tank to balanced, and her normal skills damage is increased by 12%. Now this is probably one of the most sort of controversial changes they've made, even though it's actually not that big of a deal. Water Persephone was kind of meant to sustain the team, and since her 3-star skill relates to her own max HP, she was perfect as a tank because she could have a ton of HP and thus heal everyone else more. But now since she's balanced, she'll be losing a bit of that HP. Fire Persephone is being changed from a defender to balanced, boost, and both of her skills are getting a bit of a damage boost. And finally, Dark Persephone just gets a critical hit rate increased by 30% on her 5-star skill, making both her 3-star and 5-star skill the same. Also, her active skill gets a boost of 20%. Oh my gosh, that was a lot. I hope I covered everyone. I think I did. The actual recording here in Audacity is an hour and 10 minutes. I'm gonna probably have to cut that up a lot to try and reduce the redundancy, or whatever the hell you call that. But yeah, whatever. Guys, that will do it for today. The editing is going to be exhausting as hell on this. But regardless, thanks as always for watching. Please do drop a like if you did enjoy. And until next time.